Let us get going with the Lofi-12. It's a little bit intimidating when you first look at it. It does reminisce a lot of the other LIVEN series, so if you have learned one of those, chances are this is going to be even easier for you because they did do some fine-tuning, some minor details to make it a little bit easier. But if this is your first time ever with a LIVEN machine and the Lofi-12 is your first one, worry you not. We're going to get through it. I'll take you step by step. We'll focus on one thing at a time. Press this play button right here to play back your pattern. But we're going to want to start on a clean slate in this case. So you want to get familiar with this button that says pattern, PTN. Press that once and you'll see only one button lights up. That's our selected pattern. I'll go with an empty one. Make sure there's nothing on there and we don't have anything we can mess up. The LIVEN has 4 tracks right here, and most of these settings are related directly to the tracks. Let's make a drum pattern first. The LIVEN only has 4 tracks, and you would imagine that you can only have one sound on each of these pads. So you would be limited to working with, for example, a drum loop. But luckily, we have the parameter locks, which you can also lock your drum samples in with. So we can use one of these tracks, and for each step, we can set which sample should be triggered. And we can even record this in real time. So that's what we're going to do in this case. Let us get familiar with browsing the samples, because we do need some sounds to work with. This is your bank selection knob. We have 8 different banks. And in each one of these banks, we also have 16 sounds. So the samples you would pick with this button, and you can preview it by just playing. I want to give you a quick tip here though, because I don't find that very quick to navigate with. You can, in fact, browse your samples in another way. These 2 buttons here act like our shift buttons. This had me a little bit confused at first, like which one do you use for what? The shift one has a little symbol of a knob next to it. The function one has an image of a button. So the rule here is any secondary function that the knobs have, you hold this down. And any secondary function that any of these buttons have, you hold the function button down. So now we're going to explore this sample menu right here. Hold down function and press the first one. And now we can use our steps to browse the samples instead. In this mode, the track buttons also have another function. Right now, these serve as the banks. So what we would control with this bank knob right here, pressing the one, when it lights up green, that's our first bank, second bank, third bank, fourth bank. Press it twice and you access the next set of banks. Bank 5, bank 6, bank 7, bank 8. So let's browse the drum samples first. Let's start off with this kick sound here, and unfortunately, to my knowledge, there's no way to select this sound from in here. This is sort of like an edit menu where you edit your samples. If you want to see how to sample, how to chop your samples up, pause this video, go check out my other one where I go into that in detail. I don't want this video to get too long. I just want you to get started making some beats. But we're going to go with that one. And these clear and OK buttons are also yes and no. So in this case, I'll just press clear to go back into the main menu. And you can see that the sound is not selected, but we do know where it's at. It's at bank 1, the very first sound. So I'll just twist this bank knob and twist the sample knob to locate the sample. All right, we got this kick drum. We need something to play along with. So I'll show you how to turn on the metronome first of all. Hold down function and press this metro key right there. Now we're going to use the value knob and turn the volume up a little bit. Let's try playing this pattern back now. That is way too fast for my taste. How about we twist it down to right about around 82 is what I'm feeling like today. Okay, and let's watch this pattern play back again. That's just one bar running over and over there. So let me show you how to extend the length of this. Hold down function, and you see right below there, it says length. Press it once, and now you could use the value knob to set a specific length, and it could be odd numbers, even numbers, whatever you want. But here's a shortcut. Just tap it again and you'll double that up. So now we have 32 beats, that's 2 bars. Good. And now you'll also notice that this button lit up. Let's play it back again. This is our navigationalizing system. Just for demonstrationalizing purposes, let's double that up again to 64 and play it back. Bar 1, bar 2. Ooh, color, bar 3, bar 4. That's right. Okay, so as you notice, this is where we both see which bar we're at in the pattern and how we navigate to it. So same principle there as with the tracks. If you press it once, it's green. Well, the selected one is red. Second bar, press it twice, it will access the third bar and the fourth bar. This is very handy when you're step editing, doing parameter locks, pretty much editing the steps as the sequencer is paused. One last thing I want to do before we start sequencing is add an effect to this. And all of these, most of these parameters, the function parameters, everything around here is tied directly to the track. So now we're on track 1, and I'm going to add a compressor to that one that will affect all of the sounds in here. And to add an effect, I'll press function and this effects button. And we round about around here like ain't no tomorrow until we find a compressor. Okay, all of these effects are always controlled with these 2 knobs. So for the compressor, that would be the, the threshold and the gain or something like that. Maybe the ratio. I don't remember. Check the manual to see exactly which parameters you're controlling. But I want to get some more knock to this drum. And I think the output level is pretty low. So right here, you want to get familiar with that too. It says track in the middle, and then we have pan and level. This will adjust the pan and the level of this whole track. So if you hold down the shift button, because the shift button is always for the knobs, you can see which level it's at right now, 63. We can afford to bump that up. And let's get them drums knocking. Now we can get to sequencing that, and you could just press rec and go. But for our specialty technique where we want to mix up different drum samples on these steps, that will not do it. We'll also have to get familiar with the parameter lock. To record these sample changes at the same time as we input them, we need to make sure our parameter lock is in this orangey state. That will record any of the parameter changes that we make as we either record in real time or define a step. I'm not much of a step sequencer myself, so we will record this in real time. So let's keep it in this state. Press rec, and whenever you're ready, I forgot we have 4 bars. Let's change that. Hold function and press length and set it to 32 instead. Now, it's a good thing that we made this little boo-boo, because I'll show you how to clear a pattern out, or just clear this whole track out. To do that, you just hold down clear and press the track. It asks you, do you want to remove all the notes? Okay, and now we're clear. Let's do it again. Make sure the parameter lock is orange. Bing, bing, bing. Let me get you a little pointer there. When you do drum sounds like this, you want to tap it just ever so quickly, because otherwise you'll end up with these 2 steps. I'm triggering the kick drum here and here, but I'm holding the key down a little bit too long, so it's also recording the parameter lock on this one. That means that if we're later previewing samples and playing them over as the sequence is running, it's also going to do that sample switch to our kick drum on these steps where we have it recorded. So try to be snappy. All right, exciting. Now, just to teach you about the parameter lock, this is our record state. If you're not in rec mode, don't worry, you're not going to overwrite anything in real time if you play around with sounds. But it's important that you're either in this mode or the green mode for the parameter locks to play back. Otherwise, you'll find that if you have 4 different samples, and parameter lock is not lit up. It's not in neither read or write mode, so it'll just play back the same sample throughout. We'll just stay in this Odin mode. We'll go with a clap. All right, now we just need to add that. Good enough to turn off our metronome. We have a beat to refer to. A rhythm. As you notice, when we record in real time, it is always locked to a 16th note grid. You cannot record it unquantized. There's a couple of tools you have at your disposal. One of them is this laid back parameter. Laid back will just shift everything that's in this track more or less. So if you hold down the shift button, you won't notice that, but if we turn the metronome back on, so that's very handy sometimes when you want to make like a funky bass line or something and you're like, why are you f***ing this up for me? You could take just one of these steps if we wanted to push, for example, the clap back a little bit. Be in our parameter lock rec mode, hit record, hold this step down and then shift, and then shift only that back. All right, so that's what you got to work with. You also have this swing setting. If you wanted to add some swing to your drums, you just hold shift and twist this knob. Since we have such a straight beat with nothing in between, you'll only notice it on the lights. Right now. But let's move that clap back. Go back into the record mode. Make sure parameter rec is on. Hold it down. Shift. Regular. Okay, maybe at this point you think this is enough to where you don't want to lose your progress. It might be a good time to save your pattern. Hold down function and press the pattern button, and then it'll ask you cancel or yes, confirm. Now that's saved. Let's hop to the next track. In this case, I want to put a sample that I sampled from a record right here. Again, if you want to know about sampling and chopping your samples up, check out that video. So I'm gonna go to function, samples. Okay, so I have two different chops in here assigned to different samples that I want to sequence. So I want to do this one. So let's see if we can sequence that. Go back out of this menu, and that's in user bank 3, I believe it was. Yeah. Let me show you now. Every track has a playback setting, just as has any sampler or synth should have. Hold down function and you'll see we have this mode. We can play it back monophonically with a legato, as an ARP, very cool, and polyphonically. So I don't want these samples overlapping each other, so I'll just set it to mono to be safe. And if you wanted to change the envelope directly from this surface right here, you got your release and gate and attack on this knob right here. So holding down shift, you'll change the attack. Just twisting it like this, that's your release. I want to decide when it stops. Maybe put a little bit on the end. And I want to also push up the volume of this track. So I'll hold shift and push the level up. Let's play it back with the drums to see if we can get a little bit of a mix. Okay, and same procedure again. Initially, we only have one bar. We want to double that up, and this is independent for each 4 of these tracks. So right now we have one bar. We'll hold down function, press length twice, and on the first bar, I'm just going to record this throughout with the parameter lock in rec mode, mind you, because we are going to switch samples on the next bar. So record. One little bit more attack to cover up that little click there. Okay, and now I'm going to make a mistake. Oops, too late there. How do we do to get rid of that? Remember, we can navigate our bars here with these buttons. On the second bar, I want to delete that, so I'll go into the edit mode, hold down clear, and just remove it like that. And let's do it again. All right, we have a small, tiny little gap here at the end. And if you wanted to change that, you have to remember that in parameter rec mode, each of these steps that have some information on them records the state of all of these knobs. So it's saying release 16, release 16, release 16, release 16. So changing the first one would not solve our release problem here if we wanted to extend the release of this sample. We're playing the same sample. This is all one long note, but it's recording the state of these parameters on each one of the steps. So to extend that, you would have to go to rec mode, hold this specific, the last one down, and make the release a little longer on just that. Alright, that's cool. Let's add an effect to that too, so get some little spice on it. Hold down function and press effects. And matter of fact, let's play it back and just roll through them. Just a tiny bit of chorus on it, and I'm going to bump the volume up a little bit again. Hold down shift, and this is for the whole track, remember? Another parameter that you can adjust is the velocity, and this is per step. You can record the velocity. So if you have, if you notice that your volume is all the way bumped up, both on the track and on the master, but it's still low as heck. And even when you go in to edit the sample is set to full volume. It could be your velocity that you're recording on a very low velocity right here. I usually have this just set to full all the time. All right, so I think we need a bass line to this. Let's save it, shift, pattern, okay. And move on to the next track. Go to preview some sounds, function, sample. Double press it to get to the next set of banks. I think we can use... Yeah, let's go with that. So that is bank number 5. Sound 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if nothing is happening, you might have your latch mode on. So that means that you have to go to the spot that it's set to. It's just a safety setting so you don't accidentally mess things up. Let's bump the volume up a little bit. I'm just going to record these 2 ones, and then I'm going to play with another bass sound in between there. Remember, function length to make it longer. All right, and now I'm going to find another bass sound. And again, we don't want this to be polyphonic, so hold down function. Press mode, We're going to set this to legato so we can do some. And the release is a little bit long. I'll pull that down. And this is, it's just a huge drawback that it quantizes it and stretches out the notes, quantizes the notes even as it sees fit, but that's what it is. Now let's do something with the bass sound. I'll show you a couple of other functions. Holding down function and pressing 12-bit, it's going to turn on or off 12-bit setting, and we can also pick which filter we want to use by holding function and pressing this filter. So if we wanted to add a low pass filter, these are now the controls for the filter. And the resonance is holding down shift. All right, let's add one more sound. Maybe add a compressor to the bass. Shift, function, effects. Just to even the both of the sounds out. All right, let's save it. Go to our last track. Find some other sound there. That's cool. Now, this one is way too straight. So again, I'm going to practice the laid back on specific step practice. Hold down rec, make sure parameter rec is on. Hold this one down, hold down shift, and shift it back. This can get a little bit tricky when the steps are over here. And I want to shift this one a little bit too, but not quite as much. Let us add some delay to this. Hold down shift, press effects. And remember, these two are the effects controls for the track effects. We also have a master reverb, and this can, as a matter of fact, be several different effects that apply to all of these 4 tracks, but we'll go over that to top it off. Okay, so we have one pattern that we're happy with. How do we build on this? Make more variations to it. First of all, let's save the pattern in a regular way. And then, this might be a little bit confusing. It took me a while to figure out. Got some help from Takahiro for this. To copy a pattern, be on the pattern that you want to copy. Hold down function and press pattern to save it. But instead of just okaying it, pick another one. All right, so now we're on pattern 10 and this should be identical. All right, so let's make a couple of small changes. Now let's add some filter to our sample for some variation. Hold down function and press filter. And we can actually LFO that sample. So let's first just get the basic settings down. The resonance is always way up by default. So hold down shift and remove it entirely. And this is how much the LFO should affect the filter. And this is the depth of it. And this is sort of like a face. You can also adjust some settings for the LFO right here. the shape of it and the delay setting. So function and these two buttons will allow you to customize the LFO a little bit more. Now we can jump between these two patterns. Track mute by holding function and pressing one of the tracks. One more thing to mention here. In the pattern menu, these 16 steps are not your only patterns. You can actually move up and down the banks, 4 banks of 16 patterns in each, with the octave up and down buttons. There is more to it, but this should be enough to get you going. Last thing I want to show you is the master effect. This reverb knob right here is not a per track thing. This is a master effect that affects all of these 4 tracks. And to activate it, you have to hold down function and press this reverb button. Which type of reverb you want. And it's actually not only reverbs. We have a couple other things. We're going to run the beat back and just experiment with these. So yeah, that's about it. That's all you need to know to get going. Check out my sampling video for an in-depth explanation of how to sample and chop your samples. Okay, bye-bye.